Today we're tackling an important topic that doesn't get discussed enough: flight instructor burnout and how to prevent it, especially in 2025's fast-paced training environment. If you're a CFI or training to become one, you've probably felt the long days, the stress, and the exhaustion that can creep in. I'm a CFI myself, and I know firsthand how easy it is for the passion for teaching to get buried under the demands of the job. But don't worry, this video is all about how to recognize the signs of burnout and, more importantly, how to stop it in its tracks so you can keep doing what you love, flying and teaching others how to fly. First, let's acknowledge why this matters now in 2025. In today's day and age, CFIs are backed up. They're spending even longer at flight schools than they have been for the past 5 years. Not as many instructors are moving up to the better jobs, and it's leaving the CFIs stuck where they are now, while others are lifelong educators dedicated to shaping new pilots. In both cases, the pressure and workload can be intense. Burnout isn't just a personal issue, it impacts student learning, safety, and the future of our industry. Recent research has highlighted how instructor fatigue and burnout can negatively affect training quality and safety. So preventing burnout is critical, not just for your well-being, but for producing safe, competent pilots. In this video, we'll cover 5 main areas. Number 1, the reality of flight instructor life, what the day-to-day is really like, the good and the challenging. Number 2, signs of burnout, how to spot the warning signs in yourself or fellow instructors. 3, preventing burnout, strategies for success, practicing self-care, boundary setting, and support tips. 4, maintaining enthusiasm and motivation, ways to keep your passion for teaching and flying alive over the long haul. And 5, finding meaning and purpose, reconnecting with why this job matters and how to balance professional purpose with personal fulfillment. By the end, you'll have a toolbox of ideas to help you stay motivated, healthy, and inspired in your instructing career. So strap in and let's dive into the real world of being a flight instructor, the ups, the downs, and how to keep the fire burning without burning out. Number 1, the reality of flight instructor life. Early mornings and careful preparation are routine parts of a CFI's life. Let's start with the day in the life of a flight instructor. So picture this. It's 5:45 a.m. and your alarm jolts you awake. You roll out of bed before sunrise and grab a quick bite, if you're lucky. And you head to the airport for a 7 a.m. flight lesson. By 7:30, you're in the airplane with your first student, running through checklists as the sun peaks over the horizon. By 9 a.m., that lesson wraps up and you have just enough time to debrief and chug some coffee. At 10 o'clock, another student is ready for ground or maybe a flight. Lunch break. You maybe get a protein bar while you answer a few emails or write notes in your logbook. The afternoon might bring 2 more flights, say a noon cross country and a 3 p.m. pattern work flight, each with its own prep and debrief. Early evening, you squeeze in a simulator session or catch up on required paperwork. Then perhaps a night flight from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Finally, around 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., you're finally heading home, logging the day's hours and wiping the sweat off your brow. That 12-hour plus day scenario isn't every day, but it's common enough in an instructor's world to feel normal. Now, contrast that with the next day. Suppose bad weather blows in. Your morning student cancels because of low ceilings and rain, and the afternoon looks no better. Maybe you manage one short simulator session, but most flights get scrubbed. You go from being crazy busy one week to struggling to meet your hours the next. This feast or famine schedule is a hallmark of flight instructing. Irregular hours and an unpredictable workload can wreak havoc on your body clock and your finances. One instructor described it like this: being a flight instructor is not like a normal 9-to-5 job. It may be 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., then 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., and then 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Some weeks we make all of our hours and then the next we get 0 because of bad weather or maintenance. The lack of a steady routine in the early mornings and late nights and weather-induced downtime can be exhausting and stressful in itself. Student personalities are another big variable in your life. Every day you might encounter a mix of students. One is eager and quick learning, and another is anxious and timid. And yet another is bold to the point of overconfidence. As a CFI, you wear so many hats. You're part-time teacher, part-time coach, part-time therapist. One lesson, you're soothing the nerves of a student who's sweating bullets over stalls. The next student, you're corralling the energy of a hotshot who thinks they've got it all figured out. Adapting to each individual's learning style and mood requires immense emotional energy. It's rewarding, but also draining, especially when a student has a tough day. If you've ever had a learner who just isn't getting it despite your best efforts, you know the frustration that can creep in. Maybe it's nailing landings or understanding crosswind correction. You explain it for the 10th time and it still doesn't stick. It's easy to start doubting yourself or feeling impatient. even though you care about the student's progress. On top of instructing, there's the behind-the-scenes work that nobody told you about in CFI school. Lesson planning, paperwork, and administrative tasks take up significant time. You're logging flights in multiple systems, endorsing logbooks, and tracking student progress, and perhaps coordinating the schedule or aircraft availability. If you teach at a flight school, you might have to attend instructor meetings or standardization training. If you're freelancing, you're juggling bookings and aircraft rentals. There are days when it feels like you live at the airport, arriving before dawn to prep planes and leaving long after sunset. And let's not forget maintenance delays. You've briefed a lesson and you walk out to the airplane only to find that there's something wrong with it that drowns the aircraft. Now you're scrambling to find another plane or reschedule, which can throw off your whole day and your income. Financial pressure is a reality for many instructors. Let's address the elephant in the room. Flight instructing, especially early on, isn't exactly a get-rich-quick scheme. Hourly pay can be modest, and when weather or maintenance cancels lessons, that's essentially money out of your pocket. Some CFIs end up flying even when they're dead tired because if they cancel, they can't make rent. One researcher who is also CFI noted that the low pay and irregular hours lead some instructors to push themselves past safe limits. She even had an instructor fall asleep in flight during a lesson due to sheer fatigue. Think about that. An instructor so drained that they dozed off at the controls. It really happens, and it underscores how brutal the grind can become if we're not careful. Long days of flying back-to-back lessons with minimal rest can accumulate into chronic exhaustion. No wonder why some cynics compare the flight instructor path to wearing a hair shirt. It's a painful rite of passage for those seeking airline careers. The reality is many instructors are building time to reach that magic 1,500 hours for an airline transport pilot certificate, or ATP. Flight instructing enables a new commercial pilot to log potentially 800 to 1,000 hours a year on someone else's dime, which is otherwise out of reach for most pilots financially. It's a fantastic way to gain experience quickly, but it can feel like a means to an end. When you're flying steep turns and patterns, day in and day out, it can become monotonous. The thrill of being paid to fly that you initially felt might become stale all too soon if every day feels like Groundhog Day. The same maneuvers, the same mistakes to correct over and over. Add in the low pay and fatigue and burnout becomes a real possibility. What once was your dream job can start to feel like a nightmare, particularly if students aren't progressing and you're just grinding towards your own flight time goals. Yet despite all of these challenges, let's not forget the joy and passion that drives us to instruct in the first place. If you're in this role, chances are you love flying and you get a kick out of sharing that love with others. Think about the positives of the job. You get a front row seat to some of the most incredible moments in a pilot's life. For example, the day of your student's solo for the first time. Remember that mix of pride and anxiety you felt watching the plane take off with them in it? And then the pure joy when they touch down safely? That's a memory for both you as the instructor and a student that lasts a lifetime. Or when a student you've mentored passes their check ride and you see that huge grin as they earn their pilot certificate. You know you played a huge part in that success. Those are deeply rewarding moments that not many professions can offer. The true rewards of being a flight instructor are rewards that never become old and helping others become safe, successful pilots. Logging flight time is simply a side benefit. In other words, yes, you're building hours, but you're also building pilots. And the impact is priceless. I also find that instructing makes you a better pilot. There's truth to the saying you don't really understand something until you teach it. Explaining concepts like lift, navigation, or emergency procedures to students really refines your own knowledge and skills. Every student's questions and challenges force you to learn and adapt. No two flights are exactly like ever because no two students are identical. Each has different strengths and weaknesses. One student might struggle with landings but be great at navigation, and another might be a natural stick and rudder flyer but they have trouble with the bookwork. Each presents a unique puzzle, and every flight is stimulating, and sometimes daunting, task of communicating effectively to solve that puzzle. In this way, being a teacher bellies the staleness. As an AOPA article notes, teaching stays fresh when you focus on the human element that every student brings. This perspective can transform repetitive traffic pattern practice into a new challenge. How can I reach this particular student? When you see the light bulb turn on in a student's eyes, it feels fantastic. So the reality of flight instructor's life is a mix of stress and satisfaction. You face irregular hours, countless variables, weather, maintenance, student moods, low pay, and high responsibility. It can be emotionally taxing to always be on as the teacher, the calm in the airplane, especially in days when you are already tired or stressed. It's easy to see how an instructor can get worn down over time. But equally, there's a flip side. You are doing something meaningful, and exciting. You get to fly airplanes for a living. Think about that when you taxi out at dawn, and you get to introduce others to the wonders of flight. The passion and joy of helping students achieve their dreams is the fuel that keeps many instructors going even through the tough times. Our goal in the rest of this video is to make sure that that fuel burns bright without burning out. To do that, we need to recognize when burnout is looming and have strategies to prevent it. Before we move on, I want you to take a moment to reflect. Have you ever felt any of these frustrations or fatigue I just described? Do you come home some days irritated or drained? If so, you're definitely not alone. In the next section, we'll talk about those feelings, the warning signs that burnout might be sneaking up on you. Number 2, the signs of burnout. What exactly is burnout? We use the term a lot, but let's define it in the context of aviation. Burnout is essentially a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. Psychologists often break it down into 3 key components: exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced efficiency. Exhaustion means you're completely drained. Your energy reserves are depleted. For a CFI, this could be that bone-tired feeling where the idea of another early lesson or another repeat explanation makes you want to crawl under the covers. You're not just physically tired, you're emotionally wiped out. Cynicism, sometimes called depersonalization, refers to developing a negative, detached attitude about your work. You might catch yourself saying things like, "Ugh, these students don't care. What's the point? I'm just a time-building bus driver." It's that creeping negativity. Maybe you start dreading student questions, or you start becoming overly sarcastic instead of the patient, enthusiastic instructor you once were. You feel yourself turning into a grumpy cynic in the airplane. Reduced efficiency is feeling like you're not effective or not accomplishing anything worthwhile. As an instructor, you might feel like you're just not a good teacher anymore, or you start doubting your competence. You don't feel the same pride in your work. Instead, you see more of what's going wrong than what's going right. It's a sense of diminished personal accomplishment. For example, one of your students fails a stage check and you internally spiral thinking, "I'm failing at this. I'm just not making a difference." Burnout usually builds up slowly. It's not like one day you wake up and you say, "I'm burned out of nowhere." It's more of a gradual erosion of your energy and enthusiasm. That's why it's so important to spot the early signs. Catching burnout early on is like detecting a small crack in an airplane's structure before it becomes a gaping hole. If you notice the warning signs in yourself or in a colleague, you can take action before it leads to something more serious, like serious health issues, quitting your job, or worse, a safety incident. So what are these early warning signs? Here are some common signs of burnout of flight instructors. Number 1 is chronic fatigue. You're tired all the time. It's normal to be tired after a long day, but burnout fatigue goes way deeper. You start the day tired. You're dragging through lessons, and no amount of coffee seems to help. This isn't just one bad night's sleep. It's a persistent exhaustion. You might notice you get winded or feel worn out more easily. Or if you're having trouble getting out of bed because you're not refreshed even after rest. Physically, you might feel weak or lacking energy to an unusual degree. There's also sleep problems. Ironically, even though you're exhausted, you might have some sort of insomnia or disrupted sleep. Burnout stress can keep your mind racing at night, replaying a lesson, worrying about tomorrow, making it hard to fall or stay asleep. Alternatively, some people find they want to sleep all the time, napping whenever possible, because they're so drained. Neither extreme is healthy. Consistent, poor sleep then feeds back into the fatigue, creating a vicious cycle. Irritability and mood changes. Are you more irritable or impatient than you used to be? Maybe little things start to throw you off. Are you more irritable or impatient than you used to be? Maybe little things start to set you off. A student showing up late, a minor scheduling hiccup, or even ATC giving you a simple reroute. If you find yourself snapping at students or coworkers or internally seething over small issues, that's a huge red flag. Burnout often manifests as being quick to anger or easily frustrated. You might also feel anxious or on edge a lot. Conversely, some instructors go from passionate to apathetic. Things that used to excite or concern you barely register now, a sign of emotional exhaustion. Watch out for comments from others like, "You seem kind of grumpy lately." Sometimes others notice the irritability before you do. Loss of motivation and enjoyment. This is a big one. Remember when you used to look forward to flying or to teaching a new topic? With burnout, that excitement fades. You might dread going to work or find yourself procrastinating on lesson planning when you used to be diligent in the airplane. You feel like you're just going through the motions. The joy of flying or the pride in teaching has significantly diminished. Things feel meh. One sign is cynical or negative thoughts about your students or your job. For example, thinking, these students aren't going to make it anyways, or why bother explaining it? They're not going to get it. Such cynicism is a hallmark of burnout. Another aspect is a sense of detachment. You feel disconnected from your students or colleagues, almost like you're on autopilot socially. If you catch yourself saying, I don't care, and you're not the type who usually feels that way, take note. Drop in performance or efficiency. You might notice you're not teaching as well as you used to. Perhaps you're putting less effort into your lesson plans, or you're not as responsive to students' questions. Burnout can cause difficulty concentrating and memory issues. Maybe you find it hard to focus during ground briefs, or you momentarily blank on procedures you know well. Wait a minute, did I teach emergency procedures to this student already? You might start making mistakes or skipping safety checks that you'd normally never overlook, like forgetting to remove the pedo cover because your mind is elsewhere. This reduced vigilance is not a personal failure, it's a symptom that your brain is overtaxed. If a normally sharp instructor finds themselves increasingly disorganized or error-prone, burnout should be considered as a cause, physical symptoms, and health issues. Burnout doesn't just affect your mind, it can hit your body too. Chronic stress can lead to headaches, digestive issues, or maybe muscle aches. Maybe you notice frequent tension headaches by midday, or you have random aches and pains. Some people get heart palpitations or a chest tightness from stress. Burnout can also weaken your immune system, so you might get sick more often, catching every cold that comes around. Notice if you're experiencing things like a change in appetite, overeating, or loss of appetite, or other stress-related symptoms. According to aviation wellness experts, chronic fatigue and stress might show up as breathlessness, frequent colds, or even mild depression. If you're treating your body poorly, like a lack of sleep, poor diet, it can worsen these physical signs. Isolation or disengagement. Some instructors begin to withdraw from social interactions as burnout deepens. Maybe you used to hang out in the break room with your fellow CFIs to swap stories, but now you avoid it and sit alone in your car between lessons. Or you find yourself ignoring calls and texts from friends because you just don't have the energy to socialize. Burnout can make you feel isolated, like nobody quite understands how hard things have gotten, which can become a self-fulfilling cycle. You withdraw, then feel even more alone. Feeling unsupported or alone is both a symptom and a risk factor of burnout. You may even get a reduced passion for flying, even recreationally. One particularly sad sign is when flying itself stops being fun. Maybe on days off, you used to love taking one of the small planes up for a joyride or flying with friends just for the $100 hamburger. If now that thought of flying on your day off feels like a chore, that's a warning sign. Burnout can make even hobbies feel burdensome. You might catch yourself saying something you never thought of, like, I'm sick of airplanes. Well, if you hear that coming out of your mouth, it's time to take a break and seriously evaluate your fatigue level. Now, take a breath. Hearing this list might be a bit uncomfortable if you recognize some of these signs in yourself. It's kind of like reading a checklist of symptoms and thinking, uh-oh, that's me. But remember, burnout is not personal failure or weakness. It's something that happens to a lot of people in high-stress jobs, and CFIs are certainly in that category. In fact, one LinkedIn Aviator human factors advisor summarized burnout signs among pilots and instructors as emotional exhaustion, feeling incompetent, loss of enthusiasm, disrupted sleep, headaches, appetite changes, and decreased productivity. Well, does that sound familiar? The key is that these signs shouldn't be ignored. Ignoring early signs of burnout is dangerous. Not only could it lead to some more severe health problems like depression or anxiety, but for us in aviation, it could also degrade safety. A fatigued, irritable instructor is not only suffering themselves, they might miss a student's error or fail to give adequate feedback, potentially allowing a safety issue to slip by. As the Safe Aviation Educators Group bluntly puts, when you're in the throes of chronic stress or fatigue, do not fly. Instructors need to self-certify their fitness to fly just like any pilot, and that includes mental fitness. Let's do a quick self-check. I promise you we'll get to solutions soon. Reflect on the past few weeks or months. Do you feel exhausted nearly every day rather than just occasionally? Have you become more cynical or negative about your students or job than you used to be? Do you feel like you're not making a difference or you're questioning your competence as an instructor even though you have evidence that you're capable? Have colleagues or family commented that you seem tired or grumpy or just not yourself lately? Are you experiencing any physical stress symptoms like headaches, trouble sleeping, etc. on a regular basis? If you answered yes to some of these, it might be time to take action. Burnout is like a slow fuel leak. If you don't address it, eventually your tank is going to run dry. The good news is that burnout is preventable and recoverable. By recognizing the signs, you've taken the first crucial step. Next, we'll talk about what you can do to prevent burnout from taking hold or reverse it if you're already feeling its effects. Think of this next section as your personal maintenance manual for keeping yourself, the instructor, in top shape, much like you'd want to maintain your aircraft to be airworthy. Before moving on, let me emphasize, if you ever find yourself so burned out that safety could be compromised, for instance, you're too tired to concentrate in flight, or you're feeling apathetic about crucial procedures, speak up and get help. It's better to cancel a lesson or take a break than to risk an accident. Aviation culture is thankfully starting to recognize the mental well-being is part of being a safe pilot/instructor. You are never alone in these experiences. Many CFIs have been there. Now, let's equip you with strategies to beat burnout and thrive in your instructing career. So let's talk about preventing burnout and strategies for success. All right, so we've identified the problem. Now let's focus on solutions. Preventing or overcoming burnout requires a combination of strategies. Think of it like a multi-layered approach to flight safety. Just as we have redundancy in airplanes, multiple instruments, and backup systems, we want multiple tactics to protect ourselves from burnout. We'll break these strategies into three main categories: prioritize self-care, set boundaries, and build support networks. These align with what experts recommend, and they really do work if you make them habits. I'll walk through each with practical tips tailored for flight instructors. Prioritize self-care, sleep, exercise, nutrition, fueling you for peak performance. You've probably heard the briefing, you can't pour from an empty cup. As a CFI, you give a lot of yourself, knowledge, patience, energy to your students. Self-care is about refilling that cup so you don't run dry. It's not selfish. In fact, it's critical for your success and your students' success. Think of yourself as a high-performance engine. You need proper fuel and maintenance to run smoothly. Get good sleep. This is number one for a reason. Adequate sleep is absolutely essential for cognitive function, mood, and health. Aim for the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. I know that can sound like a luxury in a CFI schedule, but prioritize it as much as possible. Consider sleep as sacred duty time. Just like you wouldn't intentionally short fuel an airplane, don't short fuel your body on rest. The FAA mandates rest for airline pilots because fatigue is such a risk to safety. While we CFIs don't have legally required rest periods, we should still self-impose them. If you flew a late night, try not to schedule a crack of dawn morning lesson. Create a sleep routine. Set a consistent bedtime, a wind-down ritual, maybe reading or listening to relaxing music, and minimize screen time right before bed. Blue light can mess with your sleep quality. Also, naps are not a crime. A 20 to 30 minute power nap between lessons, if you have the downtime and a quiet spot, this can work wonders, recharge you short term. And remember, coffee is not a substitute for sleep. It's a temporary boost at best. Chronic fatigue will catch up with you eventually, caffeine or not. As one safety article quipped, nothing life can attain is quite so desirable as sleep when you're fatigued. In other words, don't skimp on something so vital. If you have persistent insomnia, that's a sign to possibly seek help or at least reevaluate your schedule and stress. Burnout might be the culprit. Stay physically active. Exercise might be the last thing you feel like doing after a long day at the airport, but even moderate exercise can dramatically improve your mood, energy levels, and stress resilience. You don't need to run a marathon, unless you want to. Even a 30-minute brisk walk or a light jog or quick gym session a few times a week helps. Exercise releases endorphins, your body's natural stress fighters, and this can help counteract that sluggish feeling. Some instructors hit the gym first thing in the morning. Others prefer evening workouts to blow off some steam. Find what works for your body clock. On days that you're stuck at the airport for 12 hours, at least take some time to do some stretching or take a walk during a break. I've done laps around the ramp or a hangar when a student was late just to get some blood flowing. It sounds small, but it helps. There's also yoga or mindfulness exercises. Those can be excellent for pilots. AOPA's medical team notes that regular exercise and even exposure to nature, like a walk outside, have fantastic benefits for combating stress. Some CFIs practice yoga for flexibility and mental calm, others join recreational sports leagues for fun and fitness. The key is to keep your body moving. It counteracts the hours of sitting in an airplane and reduces fatigue in the long run by improving your overall fitness. You'll find you have more stamina for those marathon flight days if exercise is a habit. Eat well and stay hydrated. Coffee and donuts might be a stereotypical pilot breakfast, but our bodies need real nutrition to handle stress. Try to maintain a balanced diet, high in protein, with fruits and veggies for micronutrients. Skipping meals or eating junk food will magnify your burnout. Ever notice how you crash at around 2 p.m. and it makes you irritable or shaky? Plan your food for the day. Maybe pack healthy snacks like nuts, fruit, or protein bars so you're not at the mercy of the free FBO snacks or fast food between lessons. Stay hydrated too. Dehydration can cause fatigue and headaches. Keep a water bottle in your flight bag and sip throughout the day. Yes, that's probably going to mean that you're going to need to use the bathroom a little bit more, but you just have to plan accordingly. If you're flying a lot in hot weather as summer gets here, instructors often do multiple flights in non-conditioned aircraft under the sun. You will lose water and electrolytes. Consider sports drinks or maybe if it's really bad, electrolyte tablets if you sweat a ton, but be mindful of sugar content. Also, moderate the caffeine in energy drinks. A little can boost alertness, but too much can spike anxiety or mess up your sleep later. And absolutely avoid excess alcohol. A beer after work to relax might be fine for some, but if it becomes a nightly coping mechanism, it will disrupt your sleep quality and mood. Not to mention the obvious rules about flying after drinking. Take micro breaks for mental health. Self-care isn't just physical, your mind needs breaks too. During a long instructing day, if you get even a 15-minute window, use it wisely. Step outside and get some fresh air. Do a short mindfulness meditation or simply sit quietly without looking at your phone. A few minutes of deep breathing or listening to a favorite song can reset your mood in between students. Some instructors find it helpful to have a non-aviation book or a crossword puzzle in their bag, something totally unrelated to flying to give the brain a rest from constant aviation thinking. These little mental breaks can prevent cumulative stress. One technique is the 2-minute grounding exercise. Simply close your eyes, not while flying, of course, on the ground. Take a few slow breaths and become aware of your body and your surroundings, letting go of the lesson that just happened and not yet worrying about the next. It's like hitting a mental reset button so each lesson gets a fresh you as much as possible. Remember that self-care is not a luxury, it's part of your job as a professional instructor. Just as you would tell a student to ensure the aircraft is fuel and well maintained, you are the most important equipment in the airplane that needs to be maintained. Professional pilots are encouraged to use tools like the I'm Safe checklist. We teach this checklist to our students day in and day out, but I feel like us as instructors, we really lack about checking ourselves. I'm Safe stands for illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, and emotion or eating before flights. Perhaps we instructors need a similar habit. One AOPA doctor suggested a WELL acronym: work-related energy, laugh, and laid back. Basically asking, do I have the energy for work? Am I still able to laugh and find joy? Am I reasonably relaxed, not overly stressed? If the answer is no, that's a sign you need to address your wellness before strapping in with a student. Taking care of your own health and happiness is foundational to being able to take care of your students' training. Set boundaries. Structure your schedule and protect your personal time. One of the fastest routes to burnout is overextending yourself. As instructors, especially if you're hungry for hours or trying to accommodate many students, it's so tempting to say yes to everything. Yes to the 6 a.m. lesson. Yes to the 9 p.m. lesson. Yes, I'll come in on my days off to fly with you because that's the only time that the student can. But having no boundaries will eventually run you ragged. Setting boundaries is not about being lazy or unhelpful. It's about sustainability. Boundaries ensure you can continue to be a good instructor tomorrow and next week, not just heroically get through today. Design a manageable schedule when possible. If you have any control over your schedule, use it to create a more balanced day. For example, if you know you're not a morning person, maybe don't take the 6:30 a.m. slot every day. See if you can push the start a bit later. Or if you do, start early. Schedule a decent midday break to recharge. A fellow CFI once told me, I try not to do more than 2 flight lessons back to back without at least a 1-hour break. That's super smart. Back to back to back to back flights with no break means you're going to be playing catch up on your hydration, notes, or just a mental reset. Now, if you're in a busy flight school, admittedly, you might not always have full control. Either the dispatcher or chief instructor might hand you new students. But communicate your limits. It's better to have a slightly lighter load that you can do well than to be overloaded and perform poorly or get sick. If you're an independent instructor, be careful not to book yourself from sunrise to sunset just because you can. Map out a realistic day, maybe 2 to 3 flights and 1 sim or ground with gaps in between. And plan your days off. Actually mark them off on your calendar and treat them as unavailable for lessons. The nature of our work often includes weekends, so maybe your weekend is a Tuesday. That's fine, just make sure you truly take a day off each week. Having at least 1 full day away from the airport to rest or do other things is crucial. As one LinkedIn aviation coach noted, a practical burnout prevention step is reducing the number of flight days per month and increasing rest time. Basically, don't book 30 days straight of flying. You might feel like you're superhuman in month 1, but by month 2 or 3, it will catch up to you big time. You also need to learn how to say no tactfully. This can be hard, especially if you're a new instructor or a people pleaser by nature, but sometimes you have to say no. If the boss asks you to take on yet another student when you're already swamped, it's okay to say, well, I have plenty of students and I need to give them all the quality training that they deserve. And with my current workload, I just can't take on another student right now. Or if a student asks for an extra lesson beyond what you can handle, consider delegating or referring to another instructor for those sessions. Remember what that researcher that we talked about at the beginning of the article found. Instructors often work as many hours as they can to build experience, which leads to fatigue. It's a culture of do as much as possible, but you can choose to push back for your health. One tip is set a maximum number of lessons or hours per day for yourself. For instance, you decide I will not work or fly more than 5 or 6 hours a day. And even 6 is high, honestly. The FAA limits us flight instructors to 8 hours per day. Or I will not instruct past 7 p.m. if I started at 7 a.m. Make these rules for yourself and stick to them. If a scheduling request violates your rule, that's an automatic no, I'm not available then. You can always offer an alternate time that fits your limits. Initially, you might worry about losing income or upsetting someone, but in reality, people will respect you for being clear and professional about your availability. And the quality of your instruction during the hours you do work will be much higher, which benefits everyone, students, employer, and you. Protect personal time and space. Boundaries aren't just about hours, they're also about mental separation. In our always connected world, students or flight school managers might call or text you at all hours with questions or scheduling issues. While being responsive is good customer service, you do not need to be on call 24/7. You need to set an expectation. So for example, that you answer non-urgent messages during work hours only. Maybe you create a policy that after 8 p.m., I don't respond to work texts. I'll get back to you in the morning. And don't feel guilty about that. Everyone deserves downtime. Similarly, have a post-work ritual that separates you from the work mindset. It could be as simple as when I drive home, once I pull into my driveway, I will not think about the flight school. Some people literally change clothes as soon as they get home, taking off your work uniform or pilot uniform, and by doing so mentally, they're clocking out. The idea here is to give your brain a break from being a CFI. The idea is to give your brain a break from being a CFI you and allow regular you to exist each day. Use your off-duty time to reconnect with family, friends, or hobbies. If you love movies, watch one in the evening and don't think about tomorrow's lesson plan until tomorrow. I know it's tempting when you're passionate, but answering that one email at 11 p.m. could lead to a back and forth and steal that time from your rest time. Learn the power of delegation and saying not now if you work at a flight academy with other instructors. Lean on teamwork. Maybe you can trade off tasks. For example, one instructor can handle updating the bulletin board this month while you focus on something else, and then swap next month. Or if you're both going to be at the airport, one could pre-flight 2 planes while the other, get rid of that. If your one-person operation, delegation might mean automating or streamlining some tasks. So, for instance, using some sort of scheduling software for bookings instead of manually coordinating via text each time, or having a standard folder of lesson materials so you're not reinventing the wheel for each student. And remember, it's okay to tell a student, well, we'll cover that in the next lesson, instead of cramming everything into one long day. Basically, don't overload any single day if it can be distributed in a healthier way. Be realistic with your goals and perfectionism. Many CFIs are high achievers. We love to excel, but that can morph into perfectionism and unrealistic self-demands. Like, for example, I must be available whenever a student wants or I am failing them. Or I should be available to handle 8 students without breaking a sweat. Give yourself permission to be human. Set realistic goals for what you and your students can accomplish in a given time frame. So, for instance, if you aim to solo a student by 10 hours and they're at 8 hours struggling with landings, don't beat yourself up or force super intense training to hit an arbitrary mark. That pressure spills on to you and them. Instead, adjust the plan and don't sacrifice your well-being to meet a self-imposed target. Burnout often comes when reality doesn't match expectations and we keep pushing without adjusting expectations. It's absolutely fine if some days you accomplish less than planned. Weather, student aptitude, etc. are beyond your control. Control what you can and accept what you can't. Sounds almost zen, but it's true. Establishing boundaries might feel awkward initially if you're used to being all in all the time. But consider this, airline and corporate pilots have duty limits and rest requirements to protect them from fatigue. You deserve to operate under safe limits too, even if you have to enforce them yourself. One experienced pilot on a forum advised instructors just learn when to say no and only work 8 hours some days. It might mean you turn away a bit of short-term work, but it ensures you'll be around in the long term, doing a great job and not hating life. In summary, set boundaries that give you a livable schedule and personal life, because that balance is a solid weapon against burnout. Build support networks. Connect with peers, mentors, and professionals. Flying may often be a solo or small team activity, but flight instruction doesn't have to be a solo journey. One of the best protections against burnout is having a strong support network. Human connection, understanding, and guidance can lighten the mental load enormously. Let's talk about how you can create a web of support around you. Lean on fellow instructors. Your colleagues, other CFIs, are your first line of understanding. Who better knows the joys and pains of this job than someone else doing it? Make it a point to connect with them. This could be informally, like chatting in the instructor lounge or grabbing lunch together, or more formally through scheduled meetups. Some flight schools foster a supportive culture where instructors share tips and experiences regularly. If yours doesn't, consider being the one to start. Propose a monthly CFI roundtable or even a WhatsApp or Slack group for instructors to vent and advise each other. Sometimes just hearing, oh yeah, I had a student who struggled with that same exact thing is such a relief. You realize it's not just you. Peer support can also mean buddying up. Find a work buddy CFI who you trust and do regular check-ins with. Maybe at the end of the week, you two grab a beer or a coffee and debrief about how things are going, both the successes and frustrations. Aviation organizations recognize the power of peer support. Many airlines have peer programs for pilot mental health, and similarly, as instructors, we can adopt that model. Knowing that a colleague has your back or will listen without judgment when you say, man, I'm really wiped out, it can really validate your feelings and encourage you to take care of yourself. Plus, fellow CFIs have practical advice on handling specific stressors. They may have the been there, done that mentality. If you're a relatively new instructor, find a more experienced instructor or pilot to be a mentor figure. This could be someone at your flight school or a contact from your wider aviation network. Mentors can provide perspective because they've likely gone through phases of burnout or career doubt and can show how they overcame it. For instance, they might share how they managed their schedule when they were teaching or how they kept students engaged. A mentor is someone you can call when you have a tough day, not just to talk about an aviation scenario, but maybe to say, hey, sounds like you need a break. Here's what I suggest. Organizations like the National Association of Flight Instructors and Society of Aviation and Flight Educators actually have mentoring programs where you can be paired with seasoned educators. This is a resource worth tapping into. A mentor can also be your advocate if needed, for example, helping you communicate with management about workload or giving you ideas to improve improve a situation that's burning you out. Connect with aviation communities, associations, and forums. Beyond immediate peers, consider joining broader communities. Professional associations like NAFI or SAFE offer not only mentorship, but also a sense of belonging to a bigger instructor community. They have forums, events, and resources where instructors share best practices and support. There are also online communities, example like r/flying and Reddit, or forums like Pilots of America, with threads where instructors discuss burnout and how they cope. While one must be careful with online advice, sometimes even reading other stories can make you feel less alone. Oh wow, CFIs everywhere struggle with this. Just be mindful to engage in positive communities. If an online space is super cynical or negative, it might not help your mindset. Seek out communities that are solution-oriented and encouraging. Talk to your supervisor or flight school management. This one can be daunting, but a supportive employer is golden. If you're at a larger school or academy, consider having a candid talk with your chief flight instructor or manager about how you're feeling. The goal is to not come off as complaining, but as caring about your effectiveness and student safety. You might say, I've been struggling with a lot of fatigue. I want to ensure that I am giving the best training. Can we discuss my schedule and workload? Good management would rather adjust things than lose a CFI to burnout or risk safety. In recent times, forward-thinking flight schools are recognizing that instructor fatigue can impact safety and training quality. So they may be open to solutions like adjusting hours, staffing differently, etc. The key is to approach it professionally. Maybe even come with suggestions. If I could have X day off after Y day straight, I'd be able to recharge better. Or could we hire an additional part-time CFI to lighten the student load? Even asking for help with a troublesome student, like swapping students with another CFI for a fresh perspective, can alleviate stress. Finally, consider professional help or therapy. Sometimes burnout can entwine with mental health issues like anxiety or depression. There is zero shame in seeking professional help. A therapist, especially one familiar with occupational stress or even aviation psychology, can be a tremendous ally. They can provide coping strategies, an outlet to talk freely, and an objective perspective. Therapy isn't just for crises, but it can be preventative maintenance for your mind. If you have access to an employee assistance program through your employer, that's a confidential way to get counseling. Even if not, investing in a few sessions with a counselor might help you develop personalized techniques to manage stress. As one aviation psychologist noted, we should destigmatize mental health issues in aviation and encourage using available resources. If you twisted your ankle, you'd see a doctor. If your mind/heart hurts from chronic stress, see a counselor. Simple as that. They might teach you cognitive tricks to reframe negative thoughts or help with relaxation techniques, etc. Family and friends, don't isolate yourself. When we get super busy or stressed, often the first thing we sacrifice is time with family and friends. Try not to completely cut those ties when things ramp up. Your loved ones form your emotional support system. Spending time with them can remind you that you have an identity outside of being a CFI, and they can provide comfort and laughter, which are the best antidotes to stress. It could be as straightforward as having dinner with your family regularly or keeping up with a weekend outing with friends. You might think I'm too tired to socialize, but positive social interactions can actually re-energize you in a different way than rest does. Also, don't hesitate to share what you're going through with people close to you. Let your partner or a close friend know, hey, I've been feeling really burned out from work. Just voicing it is relief, and their understanding can create patience and support. Who knows, they might have helpful suggestions or at least will check in on you because they know you're going through a rough patch. Using resources from aviation organization groups like AOPA, ALPA, which is Airline Pilots Association for you airline people, or even ICO have materials on pilot well-being and burnout. AOPA's Air Safety Institute might have webinars or articles on fatigue management. SAFE, Society of Aviation and Flight Instructors, has a blog as we talked about, and probably some archived talks about maintaining motivation. Consuming this content can give you new ideas and reassure you that this industry is aware of these issues. Progress is being made. There was even mention of a course called Burnout Prevention for Aviation Professionals. Such resources are becoming more common. Educate yourself on these, thinking of it as continuing education. Just like you stay updated on the latest flying techniques, also stay updated on how to care for the human behind the controls. To illustrate how crucial support is, consider this. Flight instructors who have a strong sense of community and support are far more resilient in the face of stress. When you know you have peers to talk to and mentors to guide you, challenges become shared burdens instead of solitary battles. There's a saying, shared joy is doubled, shared sorrow is halved. When you ace something, like a student success, sharing it with peers can amplify that good feeling. When you struggle, sharing it can lighten the load and lead to solutions or at least emotional relief. Take a moment to think about your own support network. Is it robust or could it use some strengthening? If you're feeling isolated, make it a goal to reach out. Send a message to a fellow CFI, join a professional group, talk to friends. Even watching content like this is a form of seeking support and knowledge. So you're already on a good path. You are not alone in this. Far from it. Many of us out here recognize how tough instructing can be, and we want to lift each other up by holding and using your support network. You'll not only combat burnout, you'll likely become an even better instructor because you'll be learning and growing with others. With self-care, boundaries, and support networks in place, you have a strong defense against burnout. But there's another aspect to address. How do you keep the spark alive? How do you maintain that enthusiasm and love for teaching? That's up next. Number 4, maintaining enthusiasm and motivation. At some point in your aviation journey, you likely felt an intense excitement. Your first solo, passing your CFI check ride, seeing a breathtaking sunset from the airplane. The moments that made you say, this is why you fly. When you started instructing, you probably had genuine eagerness to teach and a vision of how rewarding it would be over time. Over time, routine and stress can dim that spark. In this section, we'll explore ways to rekindle and sustain your enthusiasm for teaching and flying. Think of it as keeping the pilot light lit in your motivational furnace, pun intended. The strategies here include focusing on positive outcomes, continuing to learn and grow, and finding variety and fun in your work. Celebrate the success stories, big and small. One surefire way to stay motivated is to consciously remind yourself of the positive impact you're making. It's easy to dwell on the students who struggled or the rough day you had, but take time to celebrate the successes. Keep a mental or physical log of wins. Did a student nail a perfect landing today after struggling for weeks? That's a win. Congratulate them and internally high-five yourself too. Did a former student send you a thank you message after passing their check ride? That means you built a foundation that helped them succeed. That's huge. Some instructors create a wall of fame in their office or on a digital photo album. Photos of students on their first solo or holding their new certificate. Looking at those can give you a warm feeling of, I was part of that. If your flight school has a tradition of cutting off a student's shirt tail after their first solo, which is an old American aviation tradition, partake in it with gusto and hang those shirt tails up. These traditions and moments reinforce the meaning behind the daily grind. Another idea. Keep a file of any thank you notes or emails from students who have expressed gratitude. On tough days, reading those can remind you that your work truly matters and is appreciated. One instructor I know says he keeps a sticky note on his desk that says, "For private pilots," and counting. It's his reminder of how many people's dreams he's helped launch. That perspective can provide a surge of motivation. You're not just spinning your wheels, you're producing aviators. Reconnect with your love of flying. Think back to what made you fall in love with aviation. Was it the sense of freedom, the technical mastery, the community? Find ways to reconnect with the pure joy of flight. As we discussed earlier, instructing can ironically result in flying a lot without personally flying for fun, since you're mostly monitoring and teaching. Make it a point every now and then to just go fly by yourself. Take an airplane up solo with a friend with no lesson plan, no objective except to enjoy the experience. Maybe do a $100 hamburger run to a favorite airport restaurant, or do some sightseeing over a beautiful area. Some flight schools actually recognize this need. Dr. Fala's research suggested allowing instructors occasional flights without students, just to remember they like what they're doing. That's brilliant. You should treat yourself to a flight sometime. If you can't afford to rent a plane on the side, perhaps swap flavors with another pilot or instructor. You can act as safety pilot for each other under the hood, so you both get some flight time and fun. Or use a school plane during off-peak at a discount for instructors. The key is to feel the controls in your hands and the joy of flying without the weight of instruction. It really can reignite that passion. Introduce variety into your training for you and your students. One enemy of enthusiasm is boredom. Flying the same practice area, the same maneuvers can dull anyone's edge after a while. So get creative with your training routines. The SAFE blog I referred to earlier had great points. If you're bored, likely your student is too. So it's time to vary the script and step out of the comfort zones. For example, instead of the usual practice area grind, plan a fun cross-country lesson to a new airport neither of you have been to. Throw in a scenario. All right, well, we're en route, ATC closes our airport. Where else can we go? Turn it into a mini adventure, or practice landing at a short grass strip if it's appropriate and safe. To challenge both you, these kinds of scenario-based trainings make lessons more engaging. They require a bit more creativity and prep, but often end up rejuvenating your own interest. Another tip, swap aircraft if possible. If all you're teaching is in, say, a 172, see if you can do a flight in a different plane like a Piper or a Diamond once in a while. New sight pictures, new quirks, it's learning for the student and keeps you on your toes in a good way. Even swapping seats can be interesting. Have you flown from the left seat in a while? It can sharpen your skills and break monotony. Of course, adhere to your training requirements and don't do anything unsafe or beyond the curriculum, but within the latitude you have, mix things up. This not only keeps you engaged, but it tends to produce more well-rounded students too. Pursue ongoing learning and advanced qualifications. One of the best ways to stay motivated is to keep challenging yourself to grow. If you're early on in your career and only have, say, your normal CFI, consider working on your double I or your MEI. The process of earning another instructor rating will deepen your knowledge and give you a goal to strive for. Plus, once you have it, you can instruct instrument students or multi-engine students, which adds variety to your day and makes you more marketable, possibly leading to higher pay opportunities or just a change of pace. Not every instructor will want to invest in every additional rating, but think about it. Often burnout stems from feeling stagnant. Learning something new is the antidote. If you already have all your CFI ratings, maybe pursue your ATP on your own when you get the hours, or set a goal of getting like your gold seal, which you get after you have a track record of recommendations and passes. Outside of certifications, you might attend workshops or courses. For instance, flight instructor refresher clinics aren't just a checkbox for a renewal. Pick an interesting one. Some offer in-person seminars with great speakers that can inspire you with new teaching techniques. There are also aviation conferences. At the NAFI Summit 2025, for example, they're showcasing innovative flight instruction techniques and focusing on topics like leveraging technology and supporting pilot well-being. Attending something like that can be incredibly energizing. You come home with fresh ideas and the validation that you're part of a larger, passionate community of educators. The networking at such events also reminds you that you're not alone and that people are working on making this career better. If travel or cost is an issue, look for virtual events or local FAA safety team seminars. Even a Wings program talk on cool topic can get you thinking in a new way. Adopt a growth mindset. This term comes from psychologist Carol Dweck's work. Basically, it means believing abilities can be developed and embracing challenges as opportunities to grow. In the context of instructing, a growth mindset might mean viewing each teaching challenge not as, here we go again, but as, okay, what can I learn from this, or how can I improve? For example, if a student is struggling despite your usual methods, it's a chance to innovate and experiment with new teaching techniques. That can actually become a fun challenge rather than a drain, if you can frame it that way. The Safe blog article was all about how embracing new challenges and stepping out of comfort zones prevents the cycle of dullness and burnout. It suggested doing things like pursuing an entirely new aviation experience, like take a few helicopter lessons or go for your glider rating. When you become a beginner at something again, it does two things. First off, it humbles you. It builds empathy for your students as you remember what it's like to be new, and it recharges your excitement as you master new skills. One CFI said after he did upset recovery or aerobatic training, he came back to his primary students with a new spark and lots of neat anecdotes and techniques to share. A growth mindset also means not fearing mistakes. If you try something new in your teaching and it doesn't work perfectly, that's okay. You learn and adjust. This perspective keeps your job feeling more like an evolving journey than a repetitive chore. Stay updated with technology and trends. Aviation is constantly evolving. New avionics, apps, and methods come out every year. Some instructors burn out because they feel things have pass them by or nothing is new. Make it a point to stay updated and embrace new tools. For example, if your school gets a new Garmin G1000 equipped aircraft and you've been teaching steam gauges for years, volunteer to get trained on it. Learning the glass cockpit can be really invigorating, and you'll be excited to show it off to students. Or explore using flight simulators or VR for teaching. There are super cool VR training tools now for procedures practice. If you become the tech-savvy CFI who uses modern tools, it can boost your enthusiasm and reputation. Follow aviation news, sometimes reading about cutting-edge developments like electric training aircraft or changes in FAA regs can spark ideas for your own career or instruction style. The industry's progress can become your progress. Engage with the aviation community and events. Sometimes a bit of aviation fun outside of instructing can rekindle your motivation. Go to air shows, fly-ins, or local aviation club gatherings. For instance, attending EAA, Air Venture, Oshkosh, or local fly-ins can remind you of the wider world of aviation beyond your flight school. You'll see air show performances, new aircraft, meet hobby pilots. It's refreshing and reminds you why aviation is exciting. Bring a friend or student along. Seeing their excitement can rub off on you too. Additionally, volunteer or participate in community aviation events like Young Eagles rallies. Doing a few charity or community flights a year can give you a sense of purpose and break the routine. It's flying, but in a different context, which can be just the shakeup you need. Above all, maintaining enthusiasm is about keeping your mindset and activities aligned with what you find fulfilling. It's easy to get tunnel vision, seeing instructing is just a job with tasks to complete. But remember, flying is magical. Sometimes we have to step back and remind ourselves of that. One great exercise is occasionally take a moment, perhaps mid-flight when the student is practicing something repetitive, gaze out at the sky and appreciate the fact that you're flying. The fact that we turn little knobs and push levers to command a machine through the air is amazing. Cultivate that sense of wonder. Share it with your students too. Your genuine enthusiasm can be contagious, and a motivated student in turn feeds back positive energy to you. Also, give yourself credit for the progress you make as an instructor. Are you better at this than you were a year ago? Probably yes, in many ways. Acknowledge that growth in times when motivation wanes. Reflect on how far you've come and the skills you've gained. That can spur you to keep going further. Finally, it might sound paradoxical, but if after trying all these things you find your enthusiasm for teaching is still consistently low, it might be a sign to recalibrate your career plans. Not everyone is meant to be a long-term instructor, and that's okay. Some CFIs instruct just enough to build hours and move on. There's no shame in that. But even in that case, the strategies here can help you manage burnout until you transition. If you're aiming for the airlines or another flying job, staying enthusiastic about aviation, if not instructing per se, will help you perform well and make it to the next step. And if you are one of those who wants to be a career instructor or at least leave the door open, maintaining motivation is even more crucial. By actively working to keep your experience fresh through celebrating successes, continuous learning, creative training, and remembering the fun, you can make each day a bit brighter and ward off that cynical fatigue that defines burnout. As the saying goes, choose a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. You can make each day a bit brighter and ward off that cynical fatigue that defines burnout. As the saying goes, choose a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. We all know even a dream job is still work. But with the right mindset and habits, you can keep the love alive so it feels less like work and more like the passion that brought you here. Number 5, finding meaning and purpose in the toughest moments of fatigue or frustration. One of the most powerful antidotes to burnout is reconnecting with your sense of purpose. Why does your work matter? What larger mission are you a part of? For flight instructors, the answer to those questions are incredibly impactful. You are quite literally helping to shape the future of aviation. Let's zoom out and look at the big picture of what it means to be a CFI and how embracing that perspective can give you both meaning and balance. Shaping future pilots. Every student you teach is a future pilot carrying the torch of aviation. Some will fly for airlines, some in the military, some just for recreation, but all of them will contribute to the safety and culture of the skies. And you are the one who lit the flames for them, or at least fanned it. That's a profound responsibility and privilege. Think about it. Without instructors, there are no new pilots, period. Every airline captain, every Air Force pilot, every bush pilot ferrying medical supplies, they all started with an instructor by their side. By instructing, you're part of an unbreakable chain that links Orville and Wilbur Wright's first lesson to the pilots of tomorrow. In a real sense, your legacy as a pilot is carried on through your students. Decades from now, a pilot you trained might perform a critical flight that saves lives or brings joy to hundreds of passengers. You might not get a thank you note for that down down the line, but it wouldn't have happened without you doing what you do, contributing to aviation safety and culture. Beyond individual pilots, you're instilling standards and values into the aviation community. A conscientious instructor produces safer pilots, which means safer skies for everyone. When you emphasize checklist discipline, stall recovery techniques, or good decision making, you are indirectly preventing accidents way down the road. The culture of aviation safety and professionalism is upheld largely by instructors teaching the right habits from day one. If that isn't meaningful, I don't know what is. As the AOPA instructor report insightfully put it, focusing on the value students receive from good instruction is an effective means for avoiding frustration and CFI burnout. When you concentrate on the value you're delivering, turning a nervous student into a competent, confident pilot, it reframes the job. You're not just grinding hours. You're providing a service of immense value to society. Safe transportation, lives enriched by flight, etc. CFIs are unsung heroes of aviation safety. Recognize that in yourself. Professionalism and pride. Being a flight instructor is a professional endeavor to be proud of. Sometimes instructors feel like second-class citizens in aviation compared to airline pilots or others. That mindset can fuel burnout. I'm just a lowly CFI. Fight that by embracing the professionalism of what you do. You are a teacher, and teaching is a noble profession in any field. The AOPA article noted that being a professional educator as a CFI is a noble endeavor. Truly, it is. Pilots often have a deep respect for their primary instructors for their whole lives. You likely remember your first instructor vividly and gratefully. You are the person for your students. Carry that with pride. You don't have to be arrogant, but acknowledge to yourself, my work has dignity and importance. Whether or not you plan to remain a CFI forever while you are one, commit to excellence in it. When you act with professionalism, keeping your knowledge sharp, your demeanor positive, your ethics strong, you'll find more meaning in it. You become not just someone working a job, but someone fulfilling a role in the aviation community. Personal growth and transferable skills. Another aspect of meaning is how this job is shaping you. Instructing hones skills like communication, patience, leadership, and quick decision making. These skills will serve you in every other aspect of life, aviation or otherwise. Realize that through the challenges, you're undergoing a form of personal development. For example, dealing with a difficult student might be teaching you conflict resolution or empathy that makes you a better friend, parent, or future captain. As John Olcott wrote, the teaching and communication skills you develop as a CFI translate to other aspects of your professional and personal life. That means this time instructing is never wasted, even if you change careers. It's enriching you. Seeing your own growth can add a sense of purpose. You are not only building pilots, you're building yourself into a more capable person. Embrace the broader mission. Aviation at its heart is about connecting people and possibilities. As an instructor, you're a critical enabler of that mission. Training new pilots contributes to a world where people and goods can move safely and efficiently, where dreams of flight become realities, where perhaps innovation progresses. One of your students might even become an aerospace engineer or the inventor of the next airplane. Who knows? If you ever feel down about the day-to-day, think in terms of the broader mission. You are part of something very special that has fascinated humanity for over a century. In some small but important way, you keep the spirit of aviation alive by passing it to others. The legacy of the Wright brothers, of Bessie Coleman, of Amelia Earhart, of Chuck Yeager, all the pioneers continues through instructors teaching each generation. You're essentially an ambassador to the skies. Balanced approach to fulfillment. Finding purpose also means ensuring you don't lose yourself entirely in any one identity. Yes, you're a flight instructor, but you're also perhaps a family member, a friend, an individual with hobbies and other interests. Burnout can sometimes make us feel like our work is our life. Strive for a balance where your work is significant, meaningful part of your life, but not your whole life. That way, if you have a bad day as an instructor, you still have other facets of life that give you joy and meaning. Maybe you volunteer at your church, or you love painting, or you're an avid runner. Those other aspects can refuel you when work is tough. Meanwhile, the meaning you derive from instruction can enhance your personal life too. For example, the patience you gain makes you a better parent, or the knowledge you gain makes you the cool uncle who explains how planes fly at Thanksgiving. The idea is not to put all your fulfillment eggs in one basket. This well-rounded approach prevents an identity crisis. If, say, you do move on from instructing, or if you have a slump, you are a whole person, of which being a CFI is an integral part but not the only part. Mindset of appreciation. A practical tip to find meaning day to day is practicing a mindset of gratitude and appreciation. Start or end your day by recalling one meaningful moment. It could be, today, I helped someone conquer their fear of stalls, or I got to witness a beautiful cloud formation on that last flight. Not many people get that view at work. Or my student said, thank you. I finally understand this, and that felt fantastic. These little reflections can anchor you to the meaningful elements of each day rather than the tiring or annoying bits. Just the other day, I had a student text me who was one of my first sign-offs ever, and he texted me that he just passed his CFI check ride. It honestly made me so happy. I honestly had tears in my eye. Not every student will come back and thank you, and many might not become professional pilots, and that's okay. But know that somewhere out there, pilots are flying who carry a piece of you with them. You have influenced their lives profoundly. That is meaning. In line with that, consider occasionally following up with past students. See where they are now. If they've achieved their goals, you'll feel good knowing you were part of it. If they drifted away from flying, maybe your encouragement could rekindle their interest, or at least you'll know you did your part in giving them that opportunity. As we wrap up, finding meaning and purpose in instructing is about recognizing that what you do has value to your students, to the aviation community, and to yourself. When you approach your work as a mission to create safe, skilled pilots and as a journey of personal and professional growth, it can transform how you feel about even the tedious parts. The paperwork becomes a record of progress, not just busy work. The long hours become an investment in something larger, not just time on a time card. Finally, let's talk about personal fulfillment. Balance is key. Dedication to your students in flying is admirable, but ensuring you're also nurturing your own aspirations. Perhaps your purpose in instructing is also to build towards your next career step, like the airlines. And that's completely valid. You can find purpose in knowing this is the road to my dream, even if instructing isn't your end-all passion. In that case, do the best job you can, both for your students' sake and your own pride, and stay focused on the goal. Or if you intend to be a career instructor, perhaps your purpose is to become the best teacher you can be. Maybe aim to be a DPE someday, or to write a curriculum, or contribute to the industry's knowledge base. Having long-term goals and a sense of direction can buffer you against day-to-day drudgery. One more thing on balance. As passionate as you are about aviation, maintain relationships and interests outside of it. A balanced life actually makes you a better instructor, because you won't resent the job for consuming everything. You'll come into it each day by choice, not by force, because you've allowed space for other things as well. In summary, remember that being a flight instructor is more than a job. It's a calling within aviation. Whether you serve in this role for 1 year or 20, you are a crucial link in the chain of flight. Every pre-solo student you nurture, every pilot certificate you help someone earn, is a direct contribution to the aviation world. When the weight of the daily grind bears down, lift your eyes to the horizon and remember why it all matters. In doing so, you'll find renewed motivation to push through the challenges and a deep sense of satisfaction that sustains you. So far, we've journeyed through the highs and lows of flight instructing, from the grueling early mornings and the signs of burnout to the strategies for self-care, the ways to keep enthusiasm alive, and finally, the rich meaning behind the role of a CFI. By now, I hope you're equipped with both practical tools and a refreshed mindset to tackle flight instructor burnout. If you're listening to this and nodding along because you felt these struggles, I want you to take this to heart. You're not alone, and you can overcome this. Burnout might be common, but it doesn't have to end your instructing journey or sour your love for aviation. By taking care of your health, setting boundaries, leaning on your fellow instructors and loved ones, continuing to learn, and focusing on the positive impact you make, you can transform your daily experience. You'll go from feeling like you're barely getting by to truly thriving as an instructor, enjoying the job and doing it well. Think about one action you can take today. Maybe it's as simple as texting a CFI friend to grab dinner and talk about things, or going to bed an hour earlier tonight, or scheduling that day off you've been postponing. Perhaps you'll finally sign up for that aerobatics intro course, or dig out the thank you note a student gave you and read it. Small steps build resilience. Over the coming days and weeks, incorporate the strategies we discussed one by one. Give yourself grace. Change won't happen overnight, but each positive change will refill your tank just a little more. I also encourage you to share your experiences and tips. Drop a comment about what resonated with you or any burnout busting tricks that you've learned in this career. This channel is a community, and your story might help another instructor out there. Let's support each other. Sometimes just knowing someone is going through the same thing and hearing how they deal with it can make a huge difference. Remember why you started this journey. Remember that first time you took the controls of an airplane and how it felt. Now multiply that feeling by the number of students you teach. That's the kind of joy you have the power to ignite in others. That's worth sticking around for and fighting through the tough days. As one article concluded, the true reward of being a flight instructor, never becoming old. They are helping others become safe, successful aviators. Logging hours and earning paychecks are part of it, but the real payoff is knowing you've made a difference in someone else's life and in aviation's future. To prevent burnout, take care of yourself as well as you take care of your students. Set yourself up for an enjoyable, sustainable path forward. If you do, I guarantee you'll not only avoid the flame out of burnout, you'll likely find yourself falling in love with aviation and instructing all over again, perhaps even more deeply than before. Thank you for hanging in there through this extensive discussion. It shows you care about improving your situation and being the best instructor that you can be. Your students are lucky to have someone who is reflective and proactive, and our aviation community is stronger for it. Stay safe, stay motivated, and keep the passion for flight alive. And as always, happy flying and happy teaching. If you found this video helpful, please consider liking it and consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like for me to cover in the future, please let me know down in the comments. Together, let's make flight instructing in 2025 and beyond fulfilling and fun. Till next week, I'll see you later.